Rules are meant to be broken. Batman's rule, Zack Snyder versus Frank Miller. We're going to discuss the rule against killing. And I'm being joined this evening by Ryan Tyler Palmer. Good evening, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about Batman's rule against killing. And I also wanted to introduce the audience. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone who's tuning in for the first time?
Thank you very much for having me, Robert. I just want to say that first and foremost. I'm Ryan Tyler Palmer. I'm a writer and a project manager for an independent art studio that specializes in sequential storytelling called Cornerstone Creative Studios. My startup is Author Bomb Books, and we have our debut full title, Hayvard Saint 8, which is a monster of my own creation that's live now. We're in the final 12 hours of this campaign, so you can this campaign is live. You can back it, but that's me, aspiring writer and a father of 3 wonderful boys, and I've been working at this for a while and doing some freelance, and now this is just kind of the expression of my own personal startup. So that's me.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what we do in Comicsgate. Hayvard Saints 8, issue number 1. On Indiegogo right now. There's just 9 hours left. We're only about halfway there. I was a little concerned about this campaign, not going to lie, Ryan. I wish we'd done this a little sooner, but I guess life gets in the way sometimes. I've been slammed with the presidential primary season with my day job, and so it just kind of slipped through my fingers here. But I'm glad to join you tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We spoke a couple of years back on some other current issues, and I think this is a great subject to talk about current mainstream and mix it with independent. So this is going to be great.
Awesome. Okay. Now what I could just read the blurb here. Hayvard Saints 8 is a tale of 8 divine appointed heroes recruited by celestial beings to defend mankind from existential ruin in the mid-3rd millennia AD. And ancient evil lives in the hearts of mankind, and these chosen righteous few are the last line of defense to steer us from culminating our own destruction. It's a pretty good hook in my view.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
And then I like this blurb here. They have to go back in time, previous point in time, with a cataclysmic end inevitable. A cracked planet Earth erupts with ultimate finality. The dying planet is apocalyptic proof of the hero's failure to save mankind. So this strikes me somewhat as a tragic tale.
Absolutely.
And my understanding, there was a little tragedy associated with the artist on this campaign. He's no longer with us.
Yes, that's true. This is a relaunch. We launched previously, and unfortunately, Dheeraj Verma was the original artist. He's a well-known pro comic artist and also an indie legend. He was the fellow who started the series. I believe he did the first 14 issues of Lady Death for Brian Pulido. He came off of Transformers officially. They did Fall of Cybertron, and Brian picked him up when he acquired. Hold it a second. 1 second, Jacob. Oh, sorry, my boys. We got traffic here. Okay, so I'll keep going. Anyway, he was the original artist on that series. After they did the run over at IDW, they got a game deal for Fall of Cybertron from IDW. For Fall of Cybertron. So this was all going on then, and he's a member of our studio officially. So I was able to talk with Dheeraj, and he read my work in-house and approached me and wanted to work on a project, which was very interesting to me, obviously, because he's very good, but I was able to impress him with my writing, working with the top professionals of the time, the people who were on Transformers, almost 20 years ago, back when entertainment was good. And, obviously Brian Pulido's writing for Lady Death. If you're a fan of that, I'm sure, people buy the books for visually, but Brian is a skilled writer as well. So, yeah, it was a great honor. He's no longer with us. He caught COVID and was unable to recover. He developed pulmonary fibrosis, and then
my goodness,
is no longer with us, right? So, but that's not the theme of the story,
Okay.
I realize that you recognize that, and I totally appreciate it. It's just a hard subject for me. It sucks. He was my friend. we became fast friends on this project, and he's very talented, and just love the guy. He's a guy's guy, you know what I mean? But our new crew that we have in here is very talented. The new artwork by Andre Lunatic is absolutely beautiful. He is very focused on storytelling. So this is the advantage of our crew, is that our guys love comics, and they actually like to tell stories, and they recognize how important the story is to making a long-term series. So this fella studied, and he's a Russian native. So we had to have the script translated for him to be able to work on this. But he expressed to me personally that he was very focused on telling a good story with the sequential artwork, and he nailed it. This is a gorgeous story. Um, so I'd like to jump right into that, if I'm not
No,
over.
it looks outstanding, and
Yeah, you
I,
can
re- I
see right
really.
there Andre's artwork. Like, this is Dheeraj Verma's artwork up here, just above this.
Which one am
And
I? The one we're looking at now,
the one just above this is Dheeraj Verma's artwork.
right
Um,
here.
so this is Dheeraj Verma, and you recognize his work from Fall of Cybertron and like the early
Right.
Lady Death comics. And then just below it is this is Andre Lunatic. And you can go up close on this artwork, and it holds up all the way. These are absolutely beautiful lines. It was inked by Jesse Hansen, who's a very close friend of mine, and the guy who got me into comics. Who was a former Marvel inker as well. And he manages professional freelance for his company, and we're partnered up on this, and all the hires are all through him. So we
Well,
got an outstanding crew here. But the
looks
focus you
absolutely fantastic, though, and I like the hook for the story. I don't want you to give too much away.
No, that's fine. I
Uh,
want to talk about the story, and I'm glad. It seems it always feels like I'm over talking when I'm promoting myself. I hate to do that, but this is what we're doing, and I love it, and I love that you mentioned the opening hook, because there's a lot that entails with that. We had a very specific plan with the story to tell this kind of story, and it's hard today because you want to tell a good story, but you also want to be unique. And I wanted to take my own unique direction with this story. I wanted to tell something that's never been told, and I wanted to do it in my own way, in a way that's never been told. So this opening scene where you get this finality of the world being cracked open, and the loss of the entire human race, and these heroes who have this duty to mankind are being given the second chance to go back and to save creation after its destruction. And we throw the reader directly into that with the beginning of the story, and we put you in the position of society witnessing a miracle. So these heroes have been brought back, and the society in this current time period has intercepted them, and has questioned them, and decided after hearing their story that there could be some truth to their witness, that there is a great evil inside the heart of mankind, and that's what's causing all the chaos in the world. And so he decides to enlist them and give them jobs and have them work directly with the government to save the planet. And they
is
find
that
out that,
Saint?
yes,
This
Hayvard
guy. This
Saint
guy.
intercepts him.
Is he?
This
He's
fella
the.
right,
Yeah, this guy with the cigar. I
yes,
ju-
this
I
fella
just
right here.
imagine him like operating in like some control room or something, and these while the heroes are out doing all the action or something like that.
Absolutely, it's very inspired by great classics like like Charlie's Angels, or like the
Hmm.
Dirty Dozen type of thing,
Hmm.
which I think might have even inspired like DC's Suicide Squad. Like, it's just a group title where you've got this general who's a desk jockey now, has had a long career and seen a lot of shit, and he uses his position of power to actually help these people. He could very easily just lock them up as crazies. They could go in with the rest. But after a long career, he realized there could be some truth to it, and it emulates real life. The idea of it is to be relatable, even though it's just this crazy fantasy sci-fi story that it's very relatable that there is something inside of all of us, and we get the choice to be what we want to be. And it sometimes feels like there are forces of good and evil pulling inside of all of us, and we're all capable of it. And so it kind of emulates real life in that way, that Although it's more external in the book, it shows it externally and visually. But that's ultimately the theme of the book, is that there is the potential for good and evil in all of us. Classic story of good and evil, but just told in this very cool way, in this beautiful story of divine intervention and a miracle that happens. These heroes who are delivered, and they get to act as outsiders, just fulfilling their duty after losing everything, and after losing when everything was on the table. So they're going to be carrying that weight throughout the story. They are going to be adjusting to society as these weird outsiders from another world, and they have to find a way to adjust and to be accepted even by the public. And so you, as the reader, get to witness this as the public. You see this miracle thrown on your lap, and there's suddenly the realization that there are beings and that there is a divinity behind the chaos and the peace on Earth. And then you get to witness their story and how they handle it. So I think it was a cool direction. My boys read it. I have three boys. I have a teenager and a boy that's in college. Um, and so I have a boy that's in college that read it. Both of them. My teenager said he loved the story. He's into military. He's very typical boy, where he likes guns and he likes Call of Duty and he likes those kind of things. So if you have boys that like that, they will
Oh
like this
yeah, I got
comic.
a
But
I got my son just turned 14. Hey, let me
it-
interrupt here. I want to
go
just
ahead.
see who we can figure out who the eight are. I'm gonna point. Can you see my mouse pointer here? Who's
Yeah,
the
I can
girl?
see it.
Who's the girl with
This is
the book?
this is Eva Bexby the Halvin, and so she represents a magic user type. They're all like not stereotypes, but they're all tropes that exist in comics already, but just done my own way. So
Cool.
keep that in
Okay.
mind when you read it. Yep.
Who's the angel guy?
The awesome angel is Anvil Kryn. He is the champion in this story. He's the ultimate force of good, and he was entrusted with an angelic forged weapon to be our defender. And he's the weapon that the group essentially is formed around to protect him at all costs, and to allow him to fulfill his function, which is to destroy this great evil, this great ancient evil, this demonic. Divine entity,
So he's like
essentially.
the champion for the divine. Okay, what about the elephant monster dude?
Oh, this is that's commonly people go with the elephant. I think maybe just the way that the art was done here, he kind of emulates elephant, but he is a woolly mammoth creature, and his name is Mammoth Monk, and he represents the trope of classic martial arts movies like Bruce Lee, and which is one of my favorites, and others, the old ninja movies, and it's just martial arts given to you in that classic way, just done in my own way. It has all of the wisdom and the good messages that come along with martial arts, and maybe a little bit of silly, and maybe inspired by fortune cookies even. So if you like Chinese food like I do, then you might see a little bit of that within some of the messages. So
All right, who's the guy? Who's the cool guy with the hat and the machine gun?
this guy is Ultra Ghost, who is martial trainer. He's the leader of the group, and he, in the book, at the very beginning, he gets his origin powers. He is a soldier at heart, and following his duty, he was chosen by these angels to fight for mankind. And he dies at the beginning of the book. As you can see, it's shown in just the opening pilot. It's not spoiling anything. Like, this is the opener, the first 3 pages, and it comes back from the spirit realm, and you get to follow his journey and how this has affected his life. So he's codename Ultra Ghost. We have the original names, and then we have the code names after, which were given by Hayvard Saint for his special task force. So that's why there's two. You got their real name, and you've got their code name. So
Cool.
Martial
And
Trainer,
then okay,
codename Ultra Ghost.
we have someone that looks strikingly resembles Magneto with a mace. I think that's a mace. It's like a
It is a
lightsaber.
mace. It's a morning star. Yeah, this is it's a morning star made out of light, and it's meant to make a lightsaber look like a butter knife. This is an angelic gift that was given to this hero. It is the power of a dead star that once gave life to his home planet, but eventually became red giant and destroyed it. It's named after his family bloodline or religion. He's an alien, so he's a Concurian. He's not actually a human, and so the idea behind him is he's a refugee from this planet that once worshipped the sun that gave them, and his family founded the religion. And so his family was a very prominent name. Well, when this sun, this religion, and this light in the sky that they worshiped turned red giant and destroyed them, he became a pariah among his own people and became a refugee amongst the human race. And the angels recruited him for this crew. And so the Concurian race will be part of this story. And it's my love of science fiction. It's my love of aliens that are represented in story. And so that's him. But that's a morning star. It's called Phallux's Light. And so that was the gift. The angels took the power from this dead sun and gave it to him in the form of a morning star to wield against evil.
Okay, and we got a gunslinger here.
This is inspired by artificial intelligence. This was written, Jesus, in 2015. I copyrighted this work, so this was my guess on what artificial intelligence would be, and we're just seeing it emerge now. So we'll see if my prediction's correct. What the idea of her is she was created by Gatehouse Industries, and she was called the GIX. It's GIX. It's an acronym for Gatehouse Internet Experiment. And so this company creates this internet experiment. They take AI and turn it loose on the internet, which is exactly what they did with artificial intelligence today, and had it gather all of the information from the human race, every piece of art, every scientific fact, every interest, want, and that could be found, was found, and incorporated into her. And then this is the representation of a being that has absorbed all of that and loves mankind, and is completely inspired by it. And then she 3D prints herself a body from this unique bacteria and becomes a sentient entity. And so she's the Gix, and she's kind of the supercomputer of the group. She's a brain, and she's a technological side of it. Just kind of think like Tony Stark, but just silly, and you can't take her seriously because she's inspired. Obviously, just like the internet, you can't be inspired. She's inspired by that, all of the tomfoolery that goes on the internet is incorporated into her. So she's a fun character.
Oh yeah, you don't want to train the AI too much on the internet. I think they ran into some trouble with that a few years ago. But okay, so I got 6 here now. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's a couple of archers back here. That must be 7 and 8 there. Who are they?
That is actually 7 together. They're the Hunter twins, Riven Moonrunner, and they're the same person in this book. And in my novel, that this is an adaptation of my first novel, which was a fantasy novel, and we adapted it for comics. And so this character is actually a member of an elven race, and in the story, angels have they grace them onto the planet to watch over mankind and to be silent witness to all of creation. And so they were recruited into the fight because things have become so dire. And when they came through in the story, in this actual comic book, when he comes through, he meets his former self who's alive in this previous time period. And so you've got the elder and the younger version of the same person. And then the 8th member is just behind there, the reptilian. He represents the beast, monstrous type of a trope. And he represents an experiment with reptilian DNA and animal humanoid DNA that spawned dragons in a previous time period. And he's just this intelligent reptilian creature, and he possesses strength. Imagine like the Beast from X-Men.
Sure, Beast is ally.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the 8 heroes of Hayvard Saints 8.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a great pitch. Everyone, do check this out on Indiegogo. The link's in the description. And so we're going to tonight, though, we're going to talk about Batman's rules. And I got this. What is this on batman.fandom.com? Are you hearing an echo?
No, I'm not hearing an echo. But didn't Batman say Batman has no rules? Wasn't that Christian Bale? Doesn't Batman have no rules?
I think it depends on which era we're talking about. So I was looking through this fandom article, and it turns out that during the Golden Age, that he actually was a killer. And it wasn't until the Comics Code Authority that this was kind of removed from the. But in the article, it says when first introduced, Batman did not have any concerns about the lives of his enemies. His first confirmed kill was in Detective Comics 27. He knocked Alfred Stryker into a vat of acid. So there's a trope. He keeps dropping people into acid. We see that in the movies, I think.
Yeah.
And then in Silver Age, due to Frederick Wortham's seduction of the innocent, targeting comics for violent acts and blaming them for juvenile delinquency, the Comics Magazine Association of America created the Comics Code Authority's guidelines to prevent government intervention. So the industry said, we'll regulate ourselves. You back off, Congress. You don't need to regulate comics. We'll do it ourselves. And then you get the Comics Code Authority, which lasts a few decades and leads to Batman's rule. This meant Batman could no longer be portrayed as a vigilante operating on the edge or using excessive violence. Although I think by the 80s, he starts getting a bit more
Yeah,
violent.
after Frank Miller. But I do want to also let you know that the first representations of killing, technically the acid killed both of those, and one, I think the Joker technically was he considered killed and came back? I don't know, but I think we could blame the acid, and I think Batman essentially is innocent in both of those cases.
Okay. All right. So we're not trying to prosecute Batman here, but maybe we will. We're going to look at the evidence in one of these very famous killings. But in the Comics Code Authority, scenes of excessive violence would be prohibited. Scenes of brutal torture, excessive or unnecessary knife and gunplay, physical agony, the gory and gruesome crime shall be eliminated. And you see this kind of work its way into kind of children's cartoons as well that you would see on television, particularly Saturday morning cartoons. And also inclusion of stories dealing with evil shall be used or shall be published only where the intent is to illustrate a moral issue. And in no case shall evil be presented alluringly, nor so as to injure the sensibilities of the readers. So they're really
And that was
concerned.
blown all to yeah, absolutely, and that was blown all to hell. I mean, they wanted to, I can see where they were going with it. It was probably very much like the, Satanic Panic for, tabletop gaming in the '80s as well, where they were, this is America, like, obviously, like, we condemn evil, and we were trying to be represent the good side of society and the planet. Doesn't always happen, but I could see where they were going that, especially with our youth, to show evil in an alluring way. Although it can be interesting for someone who's an adult who can process it, but for a child, perhaps they felt it could have been.
Yeah, they had this off real
damaging.
quickly too. Look at this. So the Comics Code Authorities in 1954, they did it the same year that this book gets published. So the book is like I guess, kind of a sensation. It certainly caught the comic book industry's attention, and they immediately responded, I guess, with the hearings that were going on up on Capitol Hill at the time. But that's interesting. So it's kind of a regulatory issue, also kind of a moral panic that's going on. And then you get Batman's rules, which I think the good writers and editors at DC, I think they made the best of this in the end, that this actually kind of works for Batman. You consider, you get to the Crisis of Infinity Earths and the modern era Batman, and they reestablished the entire DC universe. And then from the get-go, Batman is always against killing. And, his parents are brutally murdered. And this kind of works its way into the story. They just want anyone else to kind of go through, I guess, what he went through. And I think that actually kind of makes sense for the character. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that I think that in the original idea behind Batman, you could see very heavily influenced by like the TV show, essentially what Batman was supposed to be portrayed as, and that was welcomed
Right.
as Batman. And then you
Very
you have
campy.
absolutely, then you have a creator like Frank Miller who comes in and kind of started blurring those lines. Okay, so in the timeline, you have somebody who takes these heroes and kind of shows a darker side of them, maybe shows the grittiness of the vigilante lifestyle, and it absolutely presents the idea that, what would it take to push a hero over the edge and make them slip and go into
Oh,
this?
yeah.
What
And I think,
desperation?
right. And I think a couple of the stories of the 80s really get into this. The Killing Joke. This
Absolutely,
is Alan Moore. But
famously Alan Moore.
also, yep. And also A Death in the Family. This is where people voted to kill Jason Todd. So you have A Death in the Family. Jason Todd dies. So this is both are in 1988, I guess. And that's Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo. And they did 2 versions of the book, and then people voted on what they wanted the ending to be. Does Jason Todd live or does Jason Todd die? And the fans voted to kill Jason Todd. And I think this really kind of hits home. I've recently went back and reread A Death in the Family. But it absolutely, I think, worked for the time, and I think really kind of gets to the grittiness of Batman. And this is, I think, after Dark Knight Returns, because I think Dark Knight Returns, what was that, 86?
Dark
19,
Knight 19.
Yes. Yep, 1986. So I think your reading is correct. So this darker, grittier Batman, really you can thank, I think 1986 Dark Knight Returns, from Frank Miller, and Klaus Janson.
In 88.
And then the other stories, that kind of get into this darker Batman reality, and you start seeing the kind of comics. You still see the Comics Code Authority label on the on the
It's
cover
still on the books. And I'd like to say something. I think this is a very interesting subject that people have hashed over many times, but I think that these things led to the inspiration and for these kind of stories that obviously inspired people. But you see something very interesting where you give the fans a chance to vote. They wanted to see Jason Todd die. Now, is this because people are obsessed with death and despair and want to read stories with tragedy? It could be, it could very well be. And it was inspired by these great creators who were very popular at the time. But I think more so people wanted to see what would happen afterwards. How would this change this world and how would this affect Batman? I don't think people are inclined to violence necessarily or wanted to see these heroes die. But I think people were probably very interested to see how these heroes would behave after, these heroes that they love. It's just like the story that Dark Knight Returns isn't so much about the story tells this story and at the very end shows what could happen, what kind of desperation could push even a great hero to do
right.
something so malevolent as to murder somebody and
Well,
not
that's
care.
the real question. And then in 1986, The Dark Knight Returns establishes as canon in the Dark Knight universe, the Frank Miller verse, this older retired version of Batman. He's coming back into putting the cape and cowl on again. Jason Todd dies in this reality as well. And this predates A Death in the Family. So what I think part of what they were doing was saying, oh, maybe we eventually do get to the Frank Miller version. Maybe that's the canonical ending for the Batman story. And so Jason Todd is going to die. And so they said, let's work that in there. So Jason Todd eventually does die in the crisis timeline, or the post-crisis timeline. And so that's interesting. And so this popped up again recently. And of course, The Killing Joke. This is where Barbara Gordon gets paralyzed. And it's just totally just horrible. But somehow at the end of it, Batman and Joker are able to share a joke. And I think that's controversial. We could talk about that some other time, though, because on Joe Rogan recently, Zack Snyder was discussing, I think, Frank Miller's treatment because he utilized it in Batman versus Superman. Boy, what a train wreck of a movie, though. I mean, I think they tried to do Dark Knight Returns, the Doomsday Saga, Lex Luthor, and Death of Superman,
And
all
missed
in one.
on all of them.
And they missed on all of them. It was horrible. It was just like, I think the worst superhero movie I had ever seen at the time. And I became much more discerning afterwards.
In terms of forgettable.
It's
about as forgettable as you can get. And I think that at the time there was a lot of controversy online that had to do with the fandom and people being split DC or Marvel. And I think that Ben Affleck got a lot of that, but I just want to say on the record that I don't think Ben Affleck was a bad Batman. I think he portrayed Batman very well, and Bruce Wayne. I think the script was just terrible, but I know that he has passion for the character, and I think
absolutely no. It's not that I don't blame any of the actors. Henry Cavill's he's perfect for Superman. He looks just like him, and he's a pretty good actor too. And then you look at the scripts that Snyder delivered up, and everything was this dark version of everything. And so I think what we're seeing here is the contrast between something like Batman's rule, and then the idea that rules are meant to be broken. We'll get to The Dark Knight Returns, but I first wanted to let the audience hear what Zack Snyder had to say about this. I've got the timestamp here. Let me know if you can't hear it, and I'll hit pause.
All right.
I feel like I was in a dream where all I cared about was the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. That is a line in that movie.
That's hilarious.
I'm literally, and I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I think that I was like, okay. My wife was like, she goes, that's cool, right? Like, that's cool. that they came after you. I was like, it's 100% cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see when there's like such a strong reaction to certain things. And especially amongst like really wild hardcore fans, because there's hardcore like particularly
I know.
Yeah, you you also face it because you cover these genres, you cover these subjects that are iconic. Superman, Batman. I mean, just those alone.
No. And by the way, that's a lifestyle choice for a lot of people. It's not a movie.
Right.
It's not a movie. It's not like if I made a romantic comedy, you'd be like, okay, that was fun.
Right.
Like
the future is not just going to happen.
Commercials.
You have to make it. And if you want a success.
Sorry about the ad, guys.
The people who love, and by the way, I love that they feel this passionately. I'm not, in no way would I criticize that, because I feel I live the same life, right? Because like for me, it's morning, noon, and night. But so for those guys, it's not just a movie. And so you have to, on some level, you have to acknowledge that this is their religion, and they feel strongly about it. And by the way, the truth is, it's my religion.
Just a second, Robert.
So I tend to get in.
Go ahead.
You could pause for just a second. I definitely don't want to get too far ahead, and I want to at least address that. I realized they had Zack Snyder come in and do all this work, and he's on Joe Rogan giving this opinion of saying how this is like a religion and this is more than just a movie. That's not true. This is just a movie for all of us, and I'm a huge fan. It's absolutely the most absurd dick suck of a fan base that I've ever seen in my entire life, to be that out of touch of what's going on. Like, of course it's just a film, but we also
but he's teeing this up to say, the reason why people don't like my treatment of Batman is because it's a cult, it's a religion.
It's a religion. It's too important to them for me to even be able to do my job correctly. So like, I mean,
no. I think he's off base here. He's off base,
way off base and out of touch for what he was saying here. I think it's absurd, just like you said. Well, yeah, let's keep going. Yeah,
we're almost done with it.
In trouble because of I do take a deconstructivist point of view because of Dark Knight Returns, because of Watchmen. If you've read those two comics, it's hard to go back. You want to, and it's because I care that I want to take them apart. Like, I want Batman. Like, people are always like, well, Batman can't kill, right? So Batman can't kill is canon. And I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I want to do when you say that
is be a contrarian asshole and just do the opposite.
And they go like, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. I'm like, well, that's just like, you're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant if he can't be in that situation. He has to now deal with that.
Yeah.
If he does do that, what does that mean? What does it tell you about? Does he stand up to it? Can he survive that? Right? As a God, as your God, can Batman survive that?
I never thought that was canon, that Batman.
So then Joe Rogan's going to go and say, "Oh, I didn't think that was always canon." And so I think we went through the kind of Batman's rules and how this worked out through the Bronze, Silver, and Golden Ages, where he starts out, he's a killer. You get the Comics Code Authority, and then they change it and they say, "Okay, we're going to make that canon now." When we reboot into Crisis of the Infinity Earths. And then you get to the post-crisis scenario. Now, you had a great post on this. You say, why is it news for Zack Snyder to re-examine Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns? It was, speaking on Dark Knight Returns, so far the best exploration of this concept of time and age and times and desperation leading to a culminated finality. It was the answer. Enough murder. Batman must kill. Okay, Ryan, what are you? Which part of Dark Knight Returns? I know what part you're talking about, but for the audience, what are you talking about here?
So we're talking specifically here, and also Zack Snyder is specifically talking about the representation of Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, where he's forced into a position after enough killing and an entire career of being a hero and watching the Joker murder time and time again, and finally comes to this point that the only answer is that this villain needs to die because he will never stop. He realizes that that there's something inside of this villain that will never stop, and that he has to be stopped. And it's the
Right.
only way. If he's not killed, he will find a way to get out again, and he'll continue to do it. And
Well, he's
and
out.
so
So at this point, in
at this point,
in the story, he's gone on to the endocrine show with his psychiatrist,
Right.
or psychologist who thinks that he's just misunderstood. So David Endocrine, he's kind of your Letterman stand-in, and Joker is just he's going to murder his psychiatrist. He's going to murder everyone on the stage. He's going to release the gas, and the entire audience is going to be massacred, completely
mass
massacred.
genocide within with his one public opportunity to get a chance to speak to people with his voice. He took this one opportunity and gave the answer, which was that
I'm going to kill everyone in this room.
That's his answer right there, that he is going to kill everybody in this room, and he will do it again and again. When given the opportunity, he will kill everybody and kill anything in his way, just on a whim, with no logical reason for it. And so this is what drives Batman to the point, and this is what the story represents as far as their interaction together, is that, A, what kind of villain the Joker is, and B, what kind of hero Batman is. And he realizes that he does have morals and rules, but also that though it's not necessarily a rule. There's sometimes the answer contradicts the rule. See what I mean? So that's and that was famously represented here, and we've got Zack Snyder decades later talking about it and mentioning that he's
Right, he
inspired
wants
by
to do the same thing, and he thinks that his version of Batman is going to so in Batman: Dawn of Justice, Batman versus Superman, I think the body count for Batman is something like 10 villains, and some of them are they're not even particularly important to the story, and so what lacks is I think in impact. Like if the Joker's going to die at the end of Batman's career in some final climactic battle, maybe that makes sense, because in the general kind of comic book sense, these characters aren't aging, and so you get a new writing crew, new artist crews in every few issues sometimes, and then you get arcs, and then you just kind of get stories where these characters are trapped in time. But they're still kind of expanding. But you don't want to kill the Joker off, because then, we just lost our top villain or something like that.
That's true. I think it's very interesting that happened, where Batman decided that's the only way to win. And we all know Batman, the character, that if he's given enough time to plan, if he's given enough time to plan, he'll find a way to win. And that's what ultimately the theme has been behind Batman, that he's intelligent. That's the kind of hero he is that Batman wins. He has a contingency plan for the entire Justice League if something goes wrong, and he will find a way to win in depth ultimately.
Oh yeah, he's got his answer to Superman is brilliant in the same story. And so in the Dark Knight Returns, we cover, I think, 4 villains. You've got as he's coming back out of retirement, you've got Two-Face, then you've got the mutants and the mutant leader, and then you've got the Joker gets loose, and he's got to face the Joker, and then finally, kind of Superman's gone kind of dark. He's working for the government now, and he's already put down the rest of the Justice League. Apparently, that's kind of backstory there.
Absolutely, yeah, he got Ollie
Or
too
wants
as well.
revenge.
He fucking dismembered him, so that was pretty dark story.
Yeah, but
one thing I
Batman
don't really
beats
like.
the shit out of him, though.
Yeah, absolutely. He does get it in the end, which is also somewhat poetic, and I always love that part. I love the portrayal of Green Arrow in that, and his representation in the story. What he represented was not necessarily Green Arrow. What he represented was the changing of the times, and what the government in the story was willing to do to neutralize what they perceived as threats, and it was dismember him and just render him
Right.
non-heroic and
Yeah.
then
No, the
invalid,
superheroes got to go away. They've served their purpose. Let people remember them. And you
No,
kind of got the Reagan stand-in there, who's kind of ushering the, bringing in the modernity. Batman, he's like an old, what was like an old Bronco or something, like a horse that kind of, you got a wild horse. You just got to bring him in. Just go bring him in.
I think you nailed it, Robert, and where I was going. I love that you brought that up, because that was the very next sentence was I was going to contradict what I was saying, that it was a great representation and portrayal, which it was, but also I don't like the way that it was delivered, because it seemed that they used like you said, the stand-in of Reagan, where they used the Republican at the time, the Republican Party, as
but that was
essentially a
normal.
villainous.
Like you often had real presidents in the comic books. I think they did that there in the Marvel universe as well. So I think that was just kind of common, kind of like, oh, this is taking place today.
And so so they represented in there, and that's totally understandable that they might want to put that in there.
It's interesting though, because then you got to kind of do World War III versus the Soviets. I think it really holds up in hindsight. I don't mind the Reagan. I love Ronald Reagan. I don't mind the Reagan stand-in at all. I think that's cool.
I guess so. And it is just a comic book, so I mean, there's that. But looking at it, I think today, maybe at the time, not even so much, but just looking back on it today, and to see how political, how our world is politically online, and people's opinions and things, and how the public reacts to it. I mean, essentially, that could have been any part of the government, regardless of your wing. Our government definitely has shown that they have some untrustworthy practices, and so
But now we're going to cover the actual death of the Joker. We're going to be detectives, Ryan, you and I. We are going to investigate the murder of the Joker himself in The Dark Knight Returns.
That sounds great. Maybe one of us is the greatest detective on Earth. Maybe it's not
probably
Batman.
Not. The reader. Definitely the reader knows everything.
Okay.
So he says this happens in 5 seconds. It happens so slowly. Happens in 5 seconds. The blade is sharp. I barely felt it enter my stomach. He's talking. I can't hear him. Something is roaring. I can't hear anything. His neck will have to do. So he's moving more quickly than I, stabbing. And he's got the killer's eye here. Joker's like, this is the end. This is our final battle here. And so Batman's, I'm going to say, this is self-defense. He's getting stabbed over and repeatedly in the stomach. By the way, the animated version of this is very, very good. Very good portrayal of The Dark Knight Returns by DC Animated Studios. And so he breaks Joker's neck here. The fade is roaring, or the roar is fading. I hear voices. Sheer pandemonium at the county fair, Lola. The Joker has been sighted. 16 Cub Scouts have been found dead. Dozens have been wounded by explosions. And Batman has been seen. And he and the Joker exchange gunfire in a crowd. Hey, what, Lola? They're evacuating the county fair. Voices calling me a killer. So these people, they see what Batman's just done. And he says, I wish I were. And then Joker says, they're gone? The witnesses, I mean, I'm really very disappointed with you, my sweet. The moment was perfect and you didn't have the nerve. Paralysis, really. So Joker's still alive. Batman broke his neck, but he didn't kill him. And he explains, he goes further. Oops, up here. He says, just one ounce or two or more of pressure. And do I hear sirens? Yes, coming close. You won't get far. But then it doesn't matter if you do. They'll kill you for this. And they'll never know that you didn't have the nerve. I'll see you in hell. With the devil's strength, he twists and twists. What's left of his spine goes crack. And then he's just laughing. Whatever. This is the Joker's final joke on Batman. Batman didn't even have the nerve to kill him. Whatever's in him rustles as it leaves. The sirens echo through the tunnel. Tires screech. The world is growing dark and cold. So there it is. The final scene, the final battle between Batman and Joker. How could it end any other way? But I will note, it does seem to be self-defense. He was getting stabbed repeatedly. And it would appear that he didn't have the intent to kill him, only to paralyze him or to stop him in a way that he could still observe the rule. So is Zack Snyder correct about Frank Miller's version of The Dark Knight Returns, or does Batman actually, even in the end, when there appeared to be no other way to stop the Joker, trying to find a way to not kill him?
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of how it went down, because it could be interpreted in many different ways. I think seeing it again now and in this light, you could see that you could very well assume that by breaking his neck, that essentially he didn't. How did he feel that he wanted to stop paralysis? What did he have the skill to be able to do
Right.
that and not sever the cord? Did he, that
That's
essentially
the
breaking your neck is fatal in
right.
many.
Has he practiced that before? If so, on what?
Yeah, I mean, how would you know if you break somebody's neck? I assume that you have the intent to kill them, because it's very likely that it could just happen. It's not like you
Right.
can
But
foretell how
they clearly Frank Miller wants to
to
so
make people
clearly
talk about it.
the Joker's probably had some practice in this regard. So maybe the Joker's more aware of what just happened than Batman was.
Yeah,
But that Batman
maybe.
didn't have the nerve to go through with it. Maybe you figured that with Batman's resources, he could create like kind of crash dummies to kind of practice on. And you, like you said, he has a scenario for everything. So he may have even had this particular, like, oh, what if this happens when I'm dealing with the Joker? Although clearly he's seeing red, like Batman's on his last legs here.
And he's being stabbed. I mean, it was like
Yeah, I
you
mean, it's
said, it's
like
a
he said
self-defense thing. They
it
put
all
he's
happens in 5 seconds. So just
Frank,
imagine this in 5 seconds. Boom,
just a
stab,
fraction
stab,
of a
stab,
moment.
stab, crack. Yep.
Yeah, just a fraction of a moment to make a quick decision, with all of the weight of the stories on top of this, with all of the murder that happened and the fact that he's trying to kill you and put you in a position, and he's provoking. Essentially, he's not trying to stab and kill Batman. What he's doing is he's thrusting his blade into his morality to press him
Right.
into to try
Right.
and win.
It's because of this. That's why the murders happen. He's trying to get Batman's attention.
He loves Batman. If
He needs
had no
Batman.
intent to kill him. He had no intent to
He
kill
was
him. He
never
just
coming out of retirement. He was happy in his insane asylum. And then he sees Batman on the screen and he's like, Batman, you're
Yeah.
back. Where have you been,
The
buddy?
films, those are so good. Yeah, I brought the boys up on it. We bought the films, and yeah, they're so good. But the other thing too is we talk about this and we contemplate this, as many comic fans have before, talking about the story. But the thing that's not spoken of as much afterwards is kind of the illness that came afterwards in entertainment, the market. How this was so heavily influenced by successful writers that it influenced a whole generation of writers. And so you've got all these people who are portraying the same kind of thing, and now you see follow suit, Zack Snyder, who as we know, failed to hit the mark with this film, trying to hit all of these popular themes, and here he is doing it again and rehashing it on Joe Rogan, of all things, and misrepresenting the fan base by saying that some kind of religion and stuff. We're not, comic fans aren't crazy.
But yeah, as if it wasn't like as if Frank Miller didn't have this explicitly in mind. It's like you've got the whole history. Obviously, Frank Miller's well aware of Batman's rules and the history through all of the eras, and why it was he had the rule, why he wanted to break the rule, how he was going to break the rule, and then even in the end, he leaves it ambiguous to, did he really break the rule? If Joker ends himself and Batman didn't have the nerve, and the Joker is taunting him, saying, "You couldn't even do it yourself. I will finish it for you, Mr. Batman. Thank you for this final battle." Basically, he's thanking him in some sick way.
Right.
But the idea that he can mock him even in death, and be able to play that final irony on Batman, that he was like, so is he like trying to frame him for the murder, in a way, because they're going to blame. It's like he says, they're going to kill you for this. They'll never know that you didn't have the nerve. So you're going to get prosecuted for this in this new kind of liberal, I would say illiberal.
And he insults him too. He insults
Yeah.
him directly by saying so that they'll never know that you didn't have the nerve. He was telling him that he knows
You're a coward.
You're a coward. You didn't have the guts. I know it, but they won't. And so he's insulting him at the same time.
Right, because he
There's
thinks
a lot
they're
of
the
little
same.
themes and interactions that are going on here in this short scene that we have here. ultimately, like in comparison to what we're speaking about with Zack Snyder making his public announcement of what he's trying to portray, I think it's almost kind of an illness, and he's kind of fallen in the same trough. You know what I mean? As a lot of other creators have, where you're inspired by Alan Moore and Frank Miller, who obviously did something very cool with these stories then, but then you have them rehashing it and doing it again as if it's a switch that you can hit with us readers, that you can just flip that switch on and go dark and go into
Oh yeah,
murder theory and hero theory, and it's going to work again, and it's just not. And
it
it's very
doesn't.
lazy. It feels very lazy, especially for someone who's creating at his level and who has a job like this. But we can see very obviously that he just doesn't care. There wasn't very much thought into it. He gave his wife's opinion, which was very nice, but I could really care less what his wife thinks of movie. Not to be mean, but I mean, this guy's on Joe Rogan and he's talking
Right.
about like one of the greatest hero stories ever created, and you know,
Right. Why did it?
yeah,
Why?
it's like,
But he's really responding to his critics. And the idea that like, well,
yeah,
the reason they didn't like it is because it's a religion, and it's like, no, no, no. This is kind of central to the Batman character, such as we know him. You mentioned the Adam West portrayal in the 1960s, which obviously is post comics code authority. And it's very campy and fun. And you know, and kind of twisted in psychedelic in its own. I love the camera angles and everything that's
I
going
think
on
it's
there.
very lazy at this level for him to say that and use that as an excuse. Just do something new. Come up with an idea. If you don't have a good idea, why do you have the job?
Well,
You know what I mean?
he
What
wants
did you
everything to
pitch?
be like this, though. He wants everything to be this kind of dark, serious superhero version. So the Snyderverse totally fits in this element. Like you get Man of Steel and like these portrayals, and it's like great casting. And it's like, oh, they got Kevin Costner to be his dad, and it's like, you know. But then it's like
Yeah.
the death of the father doesn't have the impact that it does in the Richard Donner film. You know, it's like all my powers, and I couldn't save him. Like it was
And
it
I
meant
love dark.
something.
Now, I agree with you. I love dark stories, and I'm inspired by them, obviously. And Hayvard Saint essentially is a dark story of tragedy, like you mentioned before. You read the first page, you get that feeling of what you're in for. That this
Mm,
is a story of great tragedy. Experience that as you go forward. So I wanted the reader to know that right away. Then I just threw them right into this story with the heroes already seasoned, very much like they did here. This story isn't a Batman year one story. It's Batman has been established and finished his
right.
career. He
This is
is
the final
Batman,
chapter.
the
Yeah, this is the
final
final.
chapter. We're throwing you in the same way. It's done slightly different, but it's the same kind of way. I'm telling the story that I want to tell, just like Frank Miller told the
Mhm.
story that he wanted to tell. I want to tell a story of seasoned heroes that have already been established as heroes, and I want to put them in this
Right.
situation, and I want to give you action right out the gate, and I want to excite you and entertain you right away. We don't want to do a slow roll. Those are fine. Slow rolls are great. I think that if they're developed correctly, it's a great way to go. We don't want to do this with this. We want to entertain you. So I went with this. But, you know, uh, I think what Zack Snyder doing here is very unhealthy for comics going forward and entertainment. I think it's very lazy. He's got the big job. Have a good idea. You know what I mean? If you get the job, that I realize people watching this can say, well, easier said than done. But at the same time, you know, I'm an independent creator. We're not paying millions of dollars for a blockbuster film. So, you know what I mean? I get it that you want the money, Zach, but, you know, you kind of have to have a good idea. I'm not sure what he pitched to them to get the job, but it sounds to me
Oh,
like
who
he
knows?
basically
Yeah.
said,
Like who do you got to
it
pay? Who do
worked
you got
for
to pay
Frank
off?
Miller. Let's do it again. And Joe Rogan's
Yeah,
talking
you
with
got to
him
pay
now.
up with the right people. I think that's what's his with
Well, he knows.
Gordon. That's what Gordon says in the Nolan classics. I thought the
Yeah.
Nolan verse actually dealt with this very well. In The Dark Knight, they totally touch on this. You know, it's like, oh, you're going to break your rule. That's Heath Ledger's Joker taunting Batman. He doesn't do it there.
DC's paying this guy millions of dollars right now for him to insult fans and to fucking rehash an idea that was done 20 years ago.
Yeah, but without Batman's rules, the fact that it was a rule that he wasn't going to kill, and then you just kind of get you get this Batman. It's like, oh, there's no rule. Okay, yeah, Batman just kills. It's just normal. And it's like, oh, okay, he's kind of like the you know, it's like I don't know. I mean, kind of like the Punisher, right? Punisher versus Batman, one of my favorite comic books, which addresses the rule. Punisher is telling Batman, why don't you just kill the Joker? And this is Chuck Dixon and John Romita Jr. Great comic book. I must have read that thing a bazillion times. And when it came out, because I was following Romita Jr. from his X-Men run. I'd just gotten into comics, and then he comes off of X-Men. He's like, what are you doing next? It's like Batman versus Punisher. I'm like, oh, that'll be cool. And he got a really cool story where the Punisher's gonna kill Batman, and Batman stops him and lets the Joker get away. And he says, you two deserve each other. What the heck is wrong with you? You got to get rid of him. So they address it, I think, in a way that works for the rule, and in a way that, but without the rule, then what Frank Miller does doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. This whole scene doesn't mean anything if Batman didn't have the rule. And Zack Snyder's saying, you never needed the rule. It's like, well, you like the Dark Knight Returns, right? The reason you like it is because it breaks the rule.
Absolutely.
And
there was a development there in the story.
Yeah. You need 50 years of the rule for the impact of the story to mean anything.
Well, I think as detectives, we've established that Zack Snyder doesn't care anymore. And so I think we've gotten to that conclusion.
Maybe he didn't know what he was talking about to begin with.
I think it's conclusive evidence, but I mean,
all right. So Zack Snyder. So Zack Snyder is guilty. Guilty.
Absolutely guilty.
Put him in the fucking Phantom Zone.
We're gonna put him in the acid. Batman's gonna lower him into the acid himself. That's his fate. He has to die.
No, Batman's gonna try to save him, and Zack Snyder is gonna be like reaching for money or something, and then fall in.
I think all of these company execs are fucking jokers. I think they're all a bunch of jokers in the literal meaning, and I think metaphorically also. We're just gonna lower them all into the acid and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they want to do this to their audience. They don't want to do this to the audience, Ryan. They're not this maniacal, are they?
I don't know what they're thinking. These guys, all they need is a good idea. And I think there's lots of other things that we could explore. It just feels so, I keep going back to that word, but it feels so lazy that they're going back to this and they feel like this is what comic fans want. It's not. We just want something. We just want to be entertained. And I don't really care what it is as long as it's entertaining at what it does. And it just seems like there's no ideas. But literally they're giving this guy millions of dollars to do Batman, which is such a famous and beloved character.
Right.
You'd think they
would not to do it well.
Yeah,
like you would do if you really wanted to do it. I mean, didn't he do the 300?
Yeah, have a good idea.
How do you go from the 300, which is Frank Miller, and say I'm going to do Batman versus Superman, and just say let's do the Dark Knight Returns? Like, why not do the Dark Knight Returns? Except, I'm kind of glad they did the animated version of that. I thought that I think it tells it well. I read the graphic novel, I think, when I was 16. I was looking. I don't remember when I quite got it, but it had to be 16 or 17 or something like that. And I was blown away by it. I loved it. And I was like, wow, Frank Miller is a fucking genius. I don't know if it was before or after I read Man Without Fear.
And the art is an amazing look at it. I mean, it's good. There's some parts of it that are very, very haunting, I think, throughout it. But I read the graphic novel as well, and I felt like in some places the art just wasn't really that great. But it was a very interesting story that you can tell he was very passionate about. And so I commend him on that, and that's why he's the man.
He's very
everybody's inspired by it, and they love his work. The same with Alan Moore. I've seen people who say that there's a lot of, the thing is today with opinions, there's a lot of contrarian spite culture, and that's what I call it. It's this running theory that I have, and I think there's a lot of that going on in internet culture specifically, but also where people are just contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, and we see it here with Zack as well. Not the dog on Zack so hard, but I mean, he's saying, well, if you tell me I can't break the rule, and they're laughing about what's the first thing you're going to do, and they're laughing about it because that's essentially the fad on the internet. It seems right now is to be
right, but you haven't paid your dues. Now he spent like 10 years in the DC universe. So you could say that he's devoted a good significant portion of his career to these characters.
It pays great. I imagine he's made quite a bit of money over those 10 years as well. I mean, you give me a
Oh yeah,
fraction of that, I'm going to be quite inspired myself. But I can tell you right now that I wouldn't be rehashing old stories and things. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's a couple decades, and it's time for another iteration of it. As long as it's well done, I mean, I could definitely accept it. But the way it
yeah.
sounds here, it's just kind of like I don't really feel excited about it yet, because it feels like the two
Nah,
major
that's
ideas
it.
that he has is that I'm just going to break the rule because for the sake of it and see what happens. And
Right.
second, we're going to take this old story that was beloved and we're going to rehash it. And that doesn't make me excited. Not
No, it's
yet.
not.
I do like
It doesn't ring true. Like, we have the history of Batman leading to Dark Knight Returns. So a Batman fan, or even if you just grew up watching the show, or you like it, or etc. And then you pick up Dark Knight Returns, it's like, how did the Batman story end? And you get this kind of darker, grittier version of it, and it's pulp, and it's kind of awesome.
Look at this scene
But
right here. Look at this scene right here. I like Ben Affleck as Batman. I really do. I think his iteration of the suit here that they had, I think is
oh yeah, they're
wonderful.
clearly doing the Frank Miller version of the
I
suit, I
like
think.
I love that build. Yeah, the Frank Miller build and that suit and the way he portrayed it. I think he's a great
Let's
looking
see.
Batman. He's a
Yeah,
good
yeah, you
looking
can tell
guy
by
as
the ears.
Bruce Wayne.
You can tell by
Yeah,
the ears that clearly that's who they're going for.
I
This is
love that build.
he wants the Frank Miller version of Batman. He wanted to do Dark Knight Returns. I mean, maybe we would have been better off if he got to do that, because you get
Yeah.
Watchmen.
They should have just they should have just straight up done the story live action. It would have been much better. Probably would have been beloved. Just stay right on the rails with that.
Yeah,
Honor it. Honor
do a
Frank
note for
Miller if you're
note.
gonna honor him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do note for note, and you
why not?
you probably win an Academy Award. It's
Yeah,
like,
why not? Why not do it? I mean, there's some people would say, "Well, I want to see something different," but for something like that, if you're going to honor a beloved classic,
right.
why toss a fucking, why toss a
Doomsday,
fish
Lex
at it?
Luthor, freaking Batman, Dark Knight Returns,
Don't
the
toss a
death of
fucking fish
Superman.
at us.
It was like, oh, and we need to
Arr, arr.
somehow salvage, the Justice League movie, and like build all this kind of Marvel universe crap. And it's like, you didn't need to do any of that. There's a reason why the Batman film series has been successful in its own right, is it doesn't need, frankly, the rest of the DC universe. And so I think they saw what Marvel was doing and saying, we should do the same thing. It's like, they didn't need to do that. Like, you could have done Ben Affleck as the Hero Returns, the Dark Knight Returns, and I think it could have been very successful. I think even Zack Snyder could have done a decent job with it just by sticking to it.
I think
The
so, and
way,
I think he would have loved that as well. I feel bad for Ben Affleck because I think he was great for the role, and I know he had a lot of passion for the character, but I think that terrible script just made it very hard to be excited about it. And the fact that
yeah,
there was already a lot of turmoil online because it seemed like the fan base was at each other's throats because of the MCU versus DCU.
hmm
And so he had a lot of pressure on himself anyway. I think that there was absolutely nothing wrong with going with a straight one for one portrayal and just doing it very well live action and honor Frank Miller's work.
may
People
yet
would
be
have
done
loved
one
it.
day. But we don't
That
want to
fucking
see them
film.
fuck. We don't want to see them fuck it up, though. I mean, I'd rather just have
Yeah,
what we have now, which is the book. The animated film is great, and
that's true. There's also you're right, Robert. There's also the opportunity for them to fuck it up hard. But they did in a way. It was
they
like I
already
said, they
did.
just
Yeah, they
tossed a
couldn't
fish,
possibly be bad. It couldn't be
wanted
worse.
us to clap like seals. Yeah, they just fucking touched on a bunch of different things that were popular, did none of them well,
Mm-mm.
and gave us something that
I
was
know, like
terrible
a
and
good death to
unforgettable.
Superman, and the Reign of the Superman, like as a sequel. Like that would
Oh,
be
that would have
that would
been
be a
great.
great
Instead of a
that
Doomsday
would be a
adventure.
great 1-2 punch. It's like, why haven't they done the death to Superman and then the Return of Superman? Like what? Like
I mean, that was a very
they don't
popular.
like millions of dollars. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. That would be very popular. And some people, I mean, it's like I said, they're probably frustrated because it probably feels like everything you do is there's going to be contrarians that don't like it. And I'm not trying to be a contrarian here talking with these guys because I know it obviously is a very big and pressure filled job. I totally get that. It's just been going on for like 10 years now, and there's nothing really to be excited in entertainment. about right now. And I think that gaming is probably the only thing. It's very expensive to get into gaming. If you're somebody who wants to do that now, it's like $60. My kids are talking about it. It's like $60. My kids are big into gaming.
Oh yeah,
So
my
there's
son
that.
too. He spends a lot of time on Steam. We just got some. I got some new controllers for the Switch so that we could sit on the couch and play it. Whatever, just the controllers that come with the Switch aren't so great. So you can just get cheap ones for like $20 that you can just sit on the couch with. They work perfectly fine. And yeah, we did some Mario Party. And
Yeah, me too.
He loves indie games though, so but he really enjoys
My kids too.
Minecraft. Naturally, he
Robert.
loves my. Oh, what's up?
Oh, I was going to say, Robert, it sounds like you and I are living identical lives. Like it's the same exact thing. I just had the same conversation with my boy who's up from college, where he was talking about, yeah, I don't really like the new games and the new Call of Duty, whatever. I'm more into independent games. So he's been hitting that scene. He says that there's more content in the games, so they're more enjoyable, and they have passion in them. And he's loving the indie game scene. So I mean, I think that says a lot. That's a great note to touch on what you were saying there, and what we're agreeing on here is that I think the new age can be righted by passionate indie.
Yeah,
willing to
no,
do independent content.
he loves it. I mean, he'll spend hundreds of dollars if you add up all the birthday presents and Christmas presents, because the uncle or the grandfather sends some money in the mail. It's like, I'm going to go on Steam and I'm going to support. He doesn't think of it like I'm going to go support independent creators. He just wants to find some cool pixel art versions of games that are platformers. Yeah. Obviously, he loves Minecraft, and he enjoys playing that with his friends online. The kids he knows at school. I think that the new out with the old and with the new. So we're kind of at a crossroads, I think, in entertainment right now. And in terms of storytelling, AI is changing a lot of things right now. You and I have spoken about, I'm trying to find functions for using that in a game itself. And I just did you can check out the video I did yesterday. I've got it rolling dice now.
Okay.
And
I'll actually save that right now and check it out. I've always enjoyed your videos, Robert. I think you're a smart guy, so I'm going to go back and check that and see. I want your opinion on it.
Yeah, so Children of the Grave is still in production, but the game works just fine. And if I ever do launch a project, I'd be happy to have you on again, Ryan, to try to talk about it.
Robert, I mean it. I mean it from the bottom of my heart, 100%. Please do reach out anytime. That would be great. And just to shoot the shit. If you got another subject, to give me a shout.
We could do a demo, or try to get through a little bit of the game one time. We'll have to reschedule, of course. I think we've come in at about 1 hour here. And everyone, please do check out Hayvard Saints 8. There's only a few hours left. I'm concerned that we might not hit our goal. What will happen if we don't hit the goal, Ryan?
It's a flexible goal. This is actually funded, so I landed seed
We're
funding
funded
for this project. So, well, yeah, I landed seed funding.
Oh,
this
wow,
was paid out of pocket, so I've got proof copies here. This book is done.
Oh wow, I've totally dropped the ball here.
This book is finished, so I already have proof copies here. So you guys can back this copy. This is going to print.
It can't fail.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to print 100%. We'll probably go in demand, I believe, on this. Give people a chance to still pick up the book, but the campaign will be over.
Guys,
put up a flexible
this thing is funded right now. It says 2,560 out of 5,000, but it is a flexible goal. This campaign will receive all funds raised, even if it does not reach its funding goal. I'm so relieved.
Check out this spread right here.
I'm like Ryan. I have to help Ryan. He's not going to get the $5,000 by 3 o'clock in the morning. You mean we don't have to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to. I think we're going to go in demand. I mean, we might have if we might have hit a higher funding amount, but I think where it was a low amount, we'll give people some a little more time to get in on this project. Check out this spread. Bring me in close and take a look. This was my. I have a 20-year-old who's in college right now. He's a major in business and minors in music.
Oh no! I'm trying to figure out how to do that, Ryan.
You're almost. If you can switch us, then. Well, if I mail one of these to you right now and you hold it up, then.
Let me see if I can go full screen. Solo layout. There we go.
So there's the spread that my boy said was his favorite spread in the book. 20-year-old. These guys are gamers, my boys, but a lot of action you can see going on. Wonderful crew that we have here on this book. So you can see and that artwork holds up all the way in. We've got pros. Actually, not to toot the proverbial horn, but this book here collectively is the most experienced book team in the world. We've got amazing talents like editor Ed Greenwood. We've got Bart Sears. And we've got Daraj Verma and then the rest of our crew. Whether it's we got James Reed, who I brought in to do letters. He did Tech Wars that was written by William Shatner, who's Captain Kirk. We've got some guys who've done some really cool professional projects. And so, yeah, definitely please get in on this. Nobody's doing a book like this. You're only going to get this with independent mainstream.
And you're guaranteed to get it. It's already done, guys. This book is ready. It's already been to has it already been to the printer?
No, it's there. We haven't. We're waiting for the funds to come in from Indiegogo, so we know how many to order, and then we're going to go with the print run. So that was always going to be the plan. But the plan also was to guarantee going to print. And so I landed seed funding outside.
This is guaranteed, guys. You are not. There's very little risk. This video will actually have some utility after tonight. This is a flexible goal. This thing is going in demand. Ryan has already completed his goal. He pre-funded the book himself. Ryan, I wanted to thank you again for joining me on my channel tonight. I don't get a lot of. We're getting like 4 viewers right now, but we could just end with the trailer. I think that's a perfect way to end. Guys, do check out Hayvard Saints 8. This thing will be in demand tomorrow. So if you're catching this on replay, just click the link in the description. And the book's already done. It's going straight to the printer. And I'm sure there'll be enough copies to get it real soon. And so enjoy the trailer, and you have a good evening, Ryan.
All right. Yeah, I want to say I appreciate that. Thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Robert. I meant it when I said I think you're a smart guy. I love having conversations with you. We'll do this again soon.
Perfect, Ryan. Awesome. All right, let's
brother.
Just.
I can't hear. Can you? I got no audio.
Oh, no audio. We fucked it up.
That's all right. No, that's okay. We can do a take 2. That's not going to hurt anything.
We have to do take 2. We have to stop sharing. All right, stop screen, present, entire screen, share screen.
And this will be.
This is why you need a wingman.
But this has been a perfect cast. So I mean, if something like that didn't happen, then I'd be a little bit suspicious,
I probably fucked up the beginning. Like if you're gonna go back and watch it, like, Robert fucked it up. All right, we're gonna try again here. You hear that?
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate you giving me this time and for showing the trailer. A little piece of information about the music score. That's an original music score. So I love creativity. I love all forms of it. And so I wrote the melody for that and worked with a digital composer to do an original score. And that's what the music's from. We have like a 5-minute track we've been pulling music from.
That's awesome.
I love creativity all around. So.
Well, congratulations on your success. I can't wait to get the book in print and to share it with my family. This is Robert Romano with Comicsgate.org. I'm joined by Ryan Tyler Palmer. Please do check out Hayvard Saints 8. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good evening.
Thanks for coming, everybody.